ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. We express our praise and gratitude to Allah Ta'ala with the blessings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All right, so just recapping a few points very, very briefly.
Turn it down.
So from Ayah 219, they ask you about Khamar and Maisir. So they ask you about grape wine, date wine, and games of chance. Say there's sin in them and utility, but the sin outweighs utility. And then they ask, what should they spend? That which is excess. Thus Allah Ta'ala makes His revelations clear to you. So a few points that we discussed last time. We discussed the evolution. We discussed the evolution of prohibitions on alcohol over the course of those.
Stays his ground.
So over the course of those three separate groups of ayahs, which is something like Surah 4 or Ayah 42 or something, or 32, 42, and then Surah 5, Ayah 90, 91. And then the prohibition against gambling. And the thing to think about is that in everything that Allah Ta'ala has created, even that which is haram, there is some use, literally in everything, right? So there's nothing that is 100% purely useless, bad. Everything is levels of good. And so even in the case of alcohol, even in the case of gambling, there is use there, but the sin outweighs the use. So the harm outweighs the use. So as a philosophical principle, that which is in Sharia, that which is in Islamic law that we are supposed to do, it is fair to assume that there's some benefit, worldly benefit in these things also. And those things that we're prohibited from doing, we can safely assume that there is some worldly detriment if we do those things that are haram. And then how do these two questions relate to each other? One about gambling and alcohol, and the other one about donations. The idea being that if I'm involving myself in gambling and alcohol, I'm conducting a selfish act. If I'm involving myself in donations, I'm conducting a selfless act. And they're both getting tempered. Okay, so it's the selfish, the harm outweighs the benefit. And even in terms of donation, it's not donate all your money, it's donate what's excess. Okay. And so what is excess? Above what you're obliged to, like on yourself, on your family and such. So I'm not gaining points, special points, if to the detriment of my own health, I'm giving and giving and giving, right? So this goes back to the teaching about those companions who decided, okay, we're going to fast every day, all day. And we're going to pray all night, every night. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, got word of this, and as we know, the Prophet told them, don't do this. Your body has rights over you, your family has rights over you, and so forth and so on. And so, we really have problems with that. Okay. So the basic point being that you can't serve Allah by overriding Allah. Okay. That the service to Allah happens on Allah's terms and by obedience to Him. And then we also spoke briefly about orphans. Your minimum with orphans is you should improve their situation, which in our language might be more often than not, you donate to those who are taking care of orphans, feed orphans and such. Better than that is to treat them as brothers. But why are orphans so important? There's probably nobody in society who is more vulnerable than an orphan. And it's still always strange to me walking around downtown every once in a while, I'll see a kid, you know, and the kid, you know, even the face is dirty and the kid is asking, you know for money. You don't see that very often here, but still, every once in a while, I'll see a young boy, I see a young girl, and then I'm just imagining, their whole biography. Right? You do see this very often in other countries. When I was in Cairo right from the first day, like those like Charles Dickens stories we had to read. And I forgot who was it. What was the kid's name? It's like Jacob Marley. It was some kid who was like an orphan and just worked all day long. I saw.
Andy, everyone. How's it going?
So in Cairo, for example, there's 1 trillion kids like this. And in fact, me and a couple people were just going on this tour to go to some site, and there was this whole row and I'm sure I probably talked about this whole row of rug making schools. They're called like such and such rug making school. And a friend of mine who was with us said, no, those are all sweatshops. For tax purposes, they're called schools, okay, but they're literally sweatshops. Right? And so yeah, these are sweatshops run by Muslims, and where they kidnap little kids and then they put them in sweatshops and they're making rugs all day long. The point being again that orphans are the most vulnerable of all of society. Which brings us to where we are right now, I 221, which happens to be about.
Oh yeah, Mary.
Mashallah. Hey,
Beautiful.
She's gone. Where is she?
She's coming. She should be here. I dropped Emily off over there.
You guys
Trying
keep
on
track of how many
clothes.
times he looked at his watch.
Yeah.
Where is she?